Eli had always thought of himself as ordinary. Living on the fringe of the human colonies, he spent most of his days exploring abandoned starports and repairing broken droids for a few credits. Life was quiet, predictable, and to Eli, entirely unremarkable. That was until the day the message arrived. It came through the colony's central communications hub, an antique-looking device that hummed faintly. The message was not from any human authority, but from an alien administration, tall, angular beings with translucent skin and eyes like pools of shifting light. They were the ruling council of the Trivalan Empire, an advanced civilization humans had long observed with curiosity and fear. Eli barely understood the words that scrolled across the screen, but one line made him freeze. Effective immediately, Eli Markarian is the legal inheritor of Vierlia Katash, High Diplomat of the Trivalan Empire. The idea was absurd. Humans did not inherit other humans, let alone aliens. And Vierlia Katash was no ordinary alien. She was powerful, respected, feared. Her image flashed in his mind from the hollow recordings he had watched secretly as a boy, her statuesque form, her flowing robes, her eyes that seemed to see everything. The thought of her being his in any sense made him shiver. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "You are aware of the inheritance, yes. Custom dictates that the next inheritor is to receive the designated individual. You are responsible for all obligations assigned with this inheritance. Resistance is not encouraged. Vierlia Katash will arrive at your location within standard transport cycle 72 hours from now." "You mean I have to live with her?" She was rumored to have knowledge of advanced technology, diplomacy, and even interstellar law that humans couldn't begin to understand. Most importantly, she was known to be proud, independent, and utterly unwilling to submit to anyone. And now she was coming to live with him. When the transport arrived, Eli felt a mixture of dread and awe. The ship was elegant, with smooth metallic curves and lights that pulsed like the heartbeat of a living creature. He was ushered into a chamber where the air smelled faintly of ozone and something else he couldn't name, something alive and intelligent. And then she appeared. Vierlia Katash stepped onto the platform with the grace of someone who owned every room she entered, which, in a sense, she did. Her translucent skin caught the lights, giving her an ethereal glow. Her eyes, shifting pools of light, scanned Eli with calm, piercing scrutiny. She did not speak immediately. She did not smile. She simply regarded him, and Eli felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. "I am Vierlia Katash," she said finally, her voice melodic but firm. "I understand I am inherited by you. Explain this." "You have 72 hours until the Council expects you to demonstrate competence in this arrangement. Do not assume I will cooperate without reason. You have obligations, knowledge you do not yet possess, and expectations you are unaware of." He was certain he sounded ridiculous. She was clearly unimpressed. Vierlia's expression softened, not kindly, but as if she were assessing whether he was even worth her attention. "Very well. You will learn. I will instruct, but only to the degree I deem necessary. Failure is unacceptable." She explained, with alien precision, the legal framework that bound them together. It was not marriage, not slavery, not servitude. Simply a legal bond by which the inheritor assumed responsibility for her protection, for adherence to imperial law concerning her, and for representing her interests in human affairs. For Eli, it meant he could not make any decisions regarding her without understanding the consequences, nor could he ignore the political eyes watching him. It sounded impossible. He was a boy who had repaired droids and traded a few scarce resources with his neighbors. He had never dealt with an interstellar empire, never navigated alien law, never commanded respect from anyone, not even humans. And now this figure of power and intellect, Vierlia Katash, was in his life, expecting him to act responsibly. Eli's first attempt at conversation was clumsy. "So, do you want to eat, or need something?" This will serve as practice in basic human hospitality. Eli lay awake on his cot, listening to the soft hum of the ship and the faint, steady breathing of someone who was entirely unlike him. He thought about what it would take to survive this arrangement. Surely, brute force would not work. Surely, arrogance would only fail. What humans had, though, he realized, was adaptability. They could think in ways aliens could not anticipate. They could improvise, empathize, and take risks others would avoid. He made a plan, quiet and tentative. He would not try to dominate or control Vierlia. He would learn. He would observe. He would show her that humans were not weak simply because they were small or fragile. Maybe, just maybe, she would respect that. The next day brought the first test. A message arrived from the Alien Council, delivered directly to Violia but addressed to Eli as well. A dispute had arisen on a nearby human colony concerning trade rights, an issue the Council feared could escalate into political chaos. Eli was expected to intervene. Eli's hands shook as he read the details. Complex laws, alien protocols, centuries-old precedents, all written in a language humans struggled with. He turned to Violia. So what do we do?" Here was a chance to show that he was more than a boy from the fringe. If he could navigate this, perhaps he could prove himself to the Empire, to Violia, and to himself. Hours passed as they studied the dispute. Violia explained alien customs, trade laws, and diplomacy, but only just enough to guide him. "You will need to think beyond your instincts," she said. "See patterns where none appear. Consider consequences that are invisible to ordinary perception. Humans may surprise me yet." It was imperfect, yes, but it was thoughtful. He presented it cautiously to Violia. She examined it, silent and unmoving, before a faint ripple of acknowledgement passed over her features. "You are not as unprepared as I feared," she said. "This is acceptable for presentation. Your reasoning is unconventional, but it works." It was only a small victory, but it was enough. For the first time, he felt a sense of possibility. Perhaps humans could belong here in this vast, alien empire. Perhaps he could belong. As the stars outside the transport glimmered in the darkness, Eli realized something profound. Violia Katash was not his to command, to own, or to control. She was a force of intellect and power, and she would remain independent. But that did not mean they could not work together. If he learned, adapted, and respected her fully, perhaps they could accomplish things neither could alone. And for the first time in his life, Eli felt ready to meet the challenge. The universe was vast, the empire vast, and humans small. But maybe, just maybe, small things could change great tides. The morning light filtered through the transport's observation deck, casting pale streaks across the polished metal floor. Eli sat cross-legged, staring at the vast expanse of space beyond the viewports. He had barely slept, his mind racing with the events of the previous day. Violia Katash, the powerful alien diplomat, had accepted his tentative proposal, but only barely. The Empire's eyes were still on him, and now more than ever he realized that intelligence alone would not suffice. He had to prove himself, and quickly. Violia appeared silently, her presence filling the room before Eli even noticed her shadow. She moved with grace, her luminous eyes scanning the human boy with that same piercing scrutiny he had come to both dread and respect. "You will begin your training today," she said, her voice even and commanding. "It is not enough to understand laws and trade disputes. The Council expects competence in observation, strategy, and diplomacy. You will face tests designed for the most experienced diplomats. I will guide you, but only minimally. You must succeed through your own intellect and ingenuity. Failure will not be tolerated, though learning is permitted." Her eyes flickered briefly. "Humans are often unpredictable. This will be an advantage if you understand it." The station was alive with noise, movement, and tension. Merchants argued over deals, diplomats whispered in hidden alcoves, and spies observed with barely concealed interest. Violia explained that the station itself was a microcosm of the Empire, a place where even small mistakes could escalate into serious consequences. Eli's task was to negotiate a delicate trade dispute between two alien factions, each claiming ownership over a rare mineral mined on a remote asteroid. The minerals were critical to the Empire's communications network, and the factions were known to be proud and unforgiving. "Observe first," Violia instructed. "Do not intervene until you understand motivations, cultural priorities, and possible outcomes. Humans rush, but thinking is often more powerful than action." The alien factions spoke in precise, measured tones, their body language subtle but meaningful. He noticed how one faction shifted its posture when discussing ancestral claims, while the other's light patterns brightened whenever profit was mentioned. Violia occasionally interjected, correcting his assumptions or guiding him to notice patterns he might otherwise miss. "You see this?" she said once, pointing to the change in one diplomat's energy. "They value tradition more than profit. Your proposals must respect that, or they will reject them outright." He realized that humans in their own world often relied on intuition and empathy, tools he could adapt to navigate this far stranger universe. When it was time to speak, Eli felt his nerves tighten. He approached the two factions, bowing respectfully according to alien custom. His voice was steady, though his hands shook slightly. "I understand your concerns," he began. "Both tradition and practical needs are important. Perhaps we can find a solution that honors both." To his astonishment, both sides paused, then slowly nodded. The compromise was not perfect, but it was fair, and fairness carried weight even in alien society. Viorlia's eyes narrowed slightly, but not in displeasure. "You did well," she said. "Not perfectly, but well enough to survive. You used observation, logic, and consideration. This is more than many humans could accomplish." Eli was to prioritize responses, allocate resources, and propose strategies, all in real time. At first, the projections overwhelmed him. Ships flashed red with distress signals, factions argued in alien tongues, and time itself seemed compressed. Eli felt panic rising, but he remembered Viorlia's advice. Observe first, think later, act deliberately. He analyzed patterns, identified which problems were immediate threats, and predicted outcomes based on his observations. He allocated aid to the starships in distress, negotiated temporary truces between arguing factions, and prevented a potential sabotage by rerouting communications. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. When he finished, Viorlia regarded him silently. "Your logic is unconventional but effective. You think quickly, yet consider consequences. Humans may yet be more adaptable than I believed." A group of alien refugees had arrived on the station, seeking asylum from a distant war. Regulations were strict. The Empire could not openly interfere in certain conflicts, yet humans were allowed to propose humanitarian solutions. Eli was tasked with presenting a plan that would protect the refugees without violating the law or provoking political backlash. He spent hours consulting with Viorlia, learning the delicate balance of law, morality, and consequence. He realized that empathy could be a tool, not just a feeling. He drafted a proposal allowing the refugees temporary shelter, coupled with trade concessions that appeased local factions. When he presented it, the council was skeptical. A human boy? Alone. And yet Eli's careful reasoning, attention to detail, and willingness to consider both sides impressed them. The plan was approved with minor modifications, earning him cautious acknowledgement. Viorlia nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "You are beginning to understand. Humans have potential, though they are rarely tested in such ways. You have adapted." For the first time, he realized that humans, often underestimated, could thrive even in the most alien situations. Their ability to observe, improvise, and empathize gave them tools the Empire often overlooked. By the time the day ended, Eli was exhausted. His mind swirled with lessons, observations, and a growing sense of purpose. He looked at Viorlia, who was quietly reviewing reports in a corner of the chamber. For all her power and authority, she had guided him just enough to succeed, but no more. She was independent, proud, and wholly unyielding, and yet she had allowed him to grow under her tutelage. "You are improving," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "Not because you are strong, not because you are dominant, but because you are willing to learn and adapt. This is rare." That night, as the transport moved silently through space, Eli sat by the observation deck. Stars streaked past in long lines of light, and he thought about the Empire, the tests, and the challenges ahead. He realized that intelligence, adaptability, and empathy, human qualities often dismissed by the galaxy, were his greatest strengths. He thought about Viorlia, about her expectations, and about the responsibilities now resting on his shoulders. It was a daunting thought, but one he no longer feared. If humans could navigate this strange, alien world, perhaps they could leave their mark in ways no one had imagined. Eli smiled faintly, feeling the weight of possibility. Tomorrow would bring new trials, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove himself. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of pride. He had survived his first day, and in doing so had taken the first step toward showing that humans were not weak, not insignificant, and not powerless. And somewhere in the silent hum of the transport, Viorlia Katash watched him, unyielding and observant, yet perhaps a little less certain that humans were entirely predictable after all. For Eli, the adventure was only beginning. And he would face it armed not with strength, but with thought, courage, and the uniquely human ability to adapt. The station's corridors were quiet in the early hours, but Eli felt no peace. The tests of the previous days had been intense, but now he understood that surviving challenges was only part of the journey. The Empire watched humans closely, and some factions were openly skeptical, or worse, hostile. It was one thing to solve disputes and crises under Viorlia's guidance, It was another to navigate the political undercurrents of an empire that considered humans clever but naive. Violia appeared without warning, her presence commanding the empty corridor. She was dressed in ceremonial robes that shimmered faintly under the lights. "The council has grown uneasy," she said. Her voice carried a quiet weight. "Not all factions are satisfied with a human mediating or representing alien interests. Some seek to undermine you. You must learn to protect yourself, not through force, but through intellect and diplomacy." They moved together through the station, arriving at a council chamber that was normally reserved for high-ranking diplomats. Holographic maps floated in the air, showing star systems, trade routes, and resource allocations. Violia gestured to a side panel, and Eli saw the problem. A faction known as the KLRI, proud and aggressive, were spreading rumors questioning his competence. They claimed that humans were too impulsive to handle delicate negotiations and that Violia's compliance was forced. "This is your challenge," Violia said. "You must respond, but carefully. The KLRI will watch your every move. The Council expects diplomacy without confrontation. Subtlety is more powerful than strength." He had dealt with logic puzzles and emergencies before, but this was different. He had to influence opinion without appearing to act, to change minds without confrontation. He took a deep breath. "Okay," he said. "I think I understand. I need to outthink them, not fight them." Use that advantage. He mapped the network of influence, realizing that the KLRI were attempting to manipulate weaker factions by appealing to fear of human incompetence. Eli formulated a plan. He would present a proposal to the council that addressed the KLRI's concerns without directly confronting them. It involved a carefully designed trade agreement that benefited multiple factions, demonstrating both fairness and strategic foresight. The key was framing it as a mutually advantageous outcome rather than a rebuttal. When he presented his proposal, he felt the weight of every eye upon him. Some council members raised thinly veiled objections, but Eli anticipated their concerns. He explained the benefits clearly, appealing to logic and respect for tradition. The holographic displays shifted to show projected outcomes, and the council watched, silent. The KLRI spoke last, their representative a towering figure with energy patterns flashing aggressively. "This plan may appear reasonable," they said, "but it does not consider the historical claims of my people. By combining respect for tradition with practical safeguards, we protect the empire and all its factions." It had worked not by confrontation, but by careful thought, observation, and strategic empathy. Violia's eyes studied him with a mixture of appraisal and mild surprise. "You are more capable than I expected," she said. "Humans possess adaptability, and you have applied it effectively. Do not become complacent. The Council may approve this plan, but the Empire is vast, and intrigue is relentless." A secretive faction known as the Trelvic attempted to sabotage a trade route, hoping to create chaos that would discredit Eli's authority. Violia discovered the plot just in time and informed Eli. He realized that conventional approaches, military force, strict enforcement, would escalate the situation dangerously. Instead, he relied on human ingenuity. He analyzed patterns in the Trelvic's previous operations, predicting their moves with careful attention to detail. He coordinated a series of diversions and misdirections, guiding the movement of cargo ships and diplomats in ways that neutralized the sabotage without confrontation. By the time the Trelvic attempted their interference, all their efforts were anticipated and mitigated. Violia watched silently, impressed by his application of reasoning under pressure. "You think like a human," she said. "Unpredictable, resourceful, and practical. This will serve you well." Even the most sophisticated alien systems, bound by rigid rules and protocol, could be outmaneuvered by adaptability and creative thinking. Despite these successes, Eli faced internal doubts. Could he really survive in this alien environment? Was he truly capable of earning respect and achieving influence without overstepping boundaries? Violia seemed to sense his uncertainty. "Do not underestimate yourself," she said quietly one evening. "Competence is not measured by physical strength or wealth. It is measured by clarity of thought, perception of patterns, and the ability to act with consideration. Humans excel at this, though few take the time to do so." Eli thought back to his days on the colony, solving small problems, negotiating minor disputes, helping neighbors. Those skills, honed in a human context, were exactly what allowed him to navigate the Empire's intrigue. He began to see that human qualities, often dismissed as ordinary, could have extraordinary impact when applied wisely. Days passed, and Eli grew more confident. He had successfully diffused political challenges, anticipated sabotage, and demonstrated his ability to think strategically. Yet the empire remained complex and unpredictable, and Eli knew he was only beginning to understand its depth. One evening, as he reviewed reports with Violia, a new message arrived. It was from an unknown source, encrypted and urgent. Eli hesitated but opened it, revealing a warning. A faction opposed to human involvement was plotting a public challenge to his authority. The message included intelligence about an upcoming debate in front of the council, where humans would be mocked, and Eli would be forced to defend both himself and Violia's honor. Eli's heart pounded. This was more than a negotiation or a crisis. It was a test of his credibility and of humans' place in the empire. He looked at Violia, expecting stern judgment. Instead, she offered a faint nod. "This is your next trial. It is not enough to survive or adapt. You must persuade, influence, and outthink without aggression. Humans are underestimated. That is your advantage." He was a human boy, far from home, inherited into a world of alien politics, intrigue, and expectation. Yet for the first time, he believed in his ability to succeed, not through dominance or strength, but through observation, thought, and adaptability. Violia remained beside him, a constant presence of scrutiny and authority. Yet Eli no longer felt intimidated. He understood that respect was earned, not demanded, and that humans had unique tools, curiosity, ingenuity, empathy that could thrive even in the most alien of worlds. The next day would bring confrontation, debate, and challenge. Eli knew it would be difficult, perhaps the hardest test yet. But he also knew that he had grown, learned, and proven himself in ways no one had expected. And as the stars outside the observation deck streaked past in silent brilliance, Eli realized something profound. Humans were small, but their minds could reach far beyond, shaping outcomes, influencing empires, and carving a place in a galaxy that had long underestimated them. He tightened his fists, not in anger but in resolve. He would face the coming trial, not with fear but with strategy, intelligence, and the uniquely human determination to adapt, survive, and succeed. For Eli, the adventure was far from over. The Empire watched, the factions whispered, and the challenges loomed. But humans, he thought with quiet pride, were clever, resilient, and capable of changing the course of even the most established systems. And he was determined to prove it. Eli awoke to the gentle hum of the transport, his mind restless. The council's debates had ended, but the repercussions were already rippling across the Empire. Some factions were quietly supportive of him, intrigued by the human's ability to navigate diplomacy, while others whispered with irritation, seeking ways to undermine his influence. Eli understood that surviving the council's scrutiny was only the beginning. Now real challenges awaited, those that could not be solved with logic alone. Violia entered the observation deck silently, her eyes scanning the star-filled void. "We have incoming reports," she said. "A coalition of factions opposes our decisions. They aim to provoke conflict and destabilize the regions under their control. Their goal is to discredit humans and reassert dominance. This will require cooperation beyond what you have demonstrated thus far." He looked at Violia, who remained calm, composed, and utterly confident in her own abilities. Yet now she needed his insight, his human perspective, and his capacity to think in ways that the aliens did not anticipate. "How do we stop them without starting a war?" Eli asked. Violia's eyes gleamed faintly. "By anticipating their moves. By predicting where they will act and countering not with force, but with strategy. Your human intuition, though untested on this scale, may be our advantage." Their methods were precise, predictable by the standards of the Empire, but humans did not always act predictably. Eli realized that unpredictability could be a tool. He suggested a series of diversions, fake cargo shipments, altered communication signals, and carefully timed negotiations with neutral factions to distract and confuse the coalition. Violia observed quietly, occasionally offering advice on alien protocol, but largely allowing Eli to orchestrate the plan. Hours turned into days as they coordinated efforts. Eli found himself thinking in ways he had never imagined. He considered the psychology of each faction, their priorities, and the subtle pressures they faced. He predicted reactions to every potential action, creating a complex web of influence designed to neutralize the coalition without bloodshed. The first test came sooner than expected. A convoy carrying critical supplies was targeted by coalition agents. Eli had anticipated the move. He had instructed cargo ships to reroute along less obvious paths, coordinated holographic decoys, and aligned communication channels to mislead potential saboteurs. When the coalition struck, they found nothing but empty space and blinking lights. The supply ships continued safely, unnoticed and unscathed. Violea's eyes glimmered with approval. "You are learning quickly," she said. "Humans are not bound by the same rigidity as our species. You see possibilities where others see only rules." Disinformation spread through trading networks, creating confusion and mistrust. Eli and Violea worked tirelessly to counter it, analyzing reports, tracing sources, and issuing clarifications without revealing their full strategy. The coalition underestimated the humans' capacity for rapid adaptation, and slowly their momentum faltered. During this period, Eli learned more about Violea than he had before. She was meticulous, analytical, and disciplined, yet she respected cleverness and initiative. She guided him not by giving answers, but by challenging him to think, to anticipate, and to adapt. Their partnership grew, not of ownership, but of mutual respect and complementary skill. One evening, as the transport passed a cluster of uncharted asteroids, Violea spoke quietly. "Eli, the coalition is intelligent, but they are predictable because they assume uniformity in thought. You think differently. That difference may save us." The Empire often dismissed humans as fragile and naive, but that naivety hid ingenuity. The next challenge tested them both. The coalition had secretly influenced a minor rebellion on a colony critical to supply chains. The rebellion threatened to escalate, drawing attention from the Empire's military forces and potentially triggering conflict. Eli had to respond, but the situation was too volatile for conventional intervention. He and Violea devised a plan that relied on precision, intelligence, and subtle influence. They sent envoys to negotiate with local leaders, provided humanitarian aid to gain trust, and coordinated strategic communication to undermine the rebellion's support. Every move was timed, calculated, and adapted in real time based on feedback. Eli felt exhilarated. For the first time, he truly understood how humans could thrive in alien environments, not through dominance, but through observation, creativity, and moral reasoning. His actions stabilized the colony, neutralized the rebellion, and prevented the coalition from gaining leverage. Violea observed him closely throughout the operation. "You are learning faster than I anticipated," she said during a quiet moment. "Not because you follow instructions perfectly, but because you understand context, anticipate responses, and adapt without hesitation. This is human strength." Each victory was only temporary, a step toward survival and credibility in a galaxy that often dismissed humans as weak. The culmination of their efforts came with a direct confrontation, though not violent, but strategic. The coalition attempted to challenge Eli publicly at a trade summit, hoping to humiliate him before the Empire's delegates. Eli had anticipated this. He prepared carefully, crafting arguments, predicting counterpoints, and designing a subtle series of demonstrations that highlighted fairness, intelligence, and foresight. When the moment arrived, he spoke calmly and confidently, presenting solutions that balanced the interests of all parties while maintaining the Empire's laws and traditions. The coalition attempted to disrupt, but Eli's strategies anticipated every move. The summit concluded with widespread approval for his methods, forcing even skeptical factions to acknowledge his competence. Violea's gaze softened slightly, not in affection, but in respect. "You have demonstrated strategy, foresight, and composure under pressure. These are rare qualities, even among my own species. Humans may indeed have potential previously unrecognized." The galaxy was vast, the coalition persistent, and he still had much to learn. The day ended with a moment of quiet reflection. Eli watched the stars, considering the path that had brought him here and the challenges yet to come. He understood now that human strength was not measured by size or physical power, but by ingenuity, moral reasoning, and the ability to adapt in the face of uncertainty. Violea joined him at the observation deck. "Tomorrow," she said, "will bring new challenges. The coalition may attempt more direct action. You must be ready, but remember, your advantage lies not in brute force, but in unpredictability and understanding." Now he would face the next level, direct threats to their stability and the Empire's balance. Yet for the first time, he felt truly capable. Humans were underestimated, yes, but their adaptability, intellect, and empathy could succeed where others failed. As the stars streaked past in silent brilliance, Eli reflected on the partnership he had formed with Violia. They were not bound by ownership or dominance, but by mutual respect, complementary strengths, and shared purpose. Together, they could face challenges the Empire had never imagined. The galaxy was vast, the coalition persistent, but Eli no longer feared the unknown. He had discovered human potential, and with Violia's guidance, he was beginning to unlock it. Tomorrow, they would confront the coalition's next move. Eli knew the trials would grow harder, more dangerous, and more complex. But he also knew that humans, clever and resilient, could meet these challenges with thought, creativity, and courage. And as the transport moved silently through the endless expanse of stars, Eli felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that very underestimation could become their greatest advantage. For Eli, the adventure was far from over. Together with Violia, he would face intrigue, strategy, and challenge, and perhaps, in time, prove that humans could shape events across an empire that had long dismissed them as insignificant. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the transport's observation deck, silent witnesses to the challenges Eli had faced. The coalition of factions had not relented. If anything, their actions had grown bolder, their schemes more intricate. Yet Eli felt no fear now. He had navigated disputes, countered sabotage, and outmaneuvered political intrigue. He had learned from Violia, from the Council, and from himself. Humans were underestimated, but that underestimation was their greatest advantage. Violia entered the deck, her presence commanding, luminous, and calm. "The coalition is mobilizing for a direct confrontation," she said. "They intend to challenge us both strategically and politically. You have the tools to respond. Your human perspective, unpredictable, creative, and adaptive, will be essential. We'll handle it together." For the first time, their partnership felt fully equal. He provided the unconventional perspective, she provided the experience and authority. Eli began devising plans that leveraged their strengths. He proposed diversions to scatter coalition forces, holographic decoys to mislead spies, and carefully timed negotiations to neutralize political opposition. Each action was designed to anticipate responses, prevent escalation, and preserve stability, while exposing weaknesses in the coalition's assumptions. When the confrontation began, Eli felt a thrill. The coalition attempted to disrupt supply lines, incite rebellions, and create confusion across several colonies simultaneously. But Eli had predicted their moves. Using the diversions, he rerouted resources, coordinated communication networks, and guided local leaders in ways the coalition did not anticipate. Every step was measured, deliberate, and human in its ingenuity. Violia moved with precision alongside him, her power and influence complementing his human strategy. Where he provided adaptability and insight, she provided authority, enforcement, and knowledge of alien protocols. The coalition had expected disunity, but together, Eli and Violia formed an unexpected and formidable partnership. One by one, coalition attempts failed. Sabotage efforts were neutralized without violence, rebellions were peacefully diffused, and political challenges collapsed under careful argument and demonstration of fairness. Eli noticed a pattern. The coalition underestimated humans, assuming they would act impulsively or retreat under pressure. By acting calmly, logically, and unpredictably, Eli turned that assumption against them. During a critical moment, a fleet of transport ships carrying coalition supplies approached a contested star system. The Empire expected conflict, but Eli devised a nonviolent solution. He coordinated holographic projections to simulate a larger fleet and rerouted diplomatic messages, implying that interference would violate interstellar treaties. The coalition hesitated, then withdrew, confused and unable to act. Violia watched silently, impressed. "You think beyond conventional limitations," she said. "You anticipate, adapt, and act with foresight. Humans may indeed influence outcomes far beyond their perceived capacity." Humans were small, yes, but their minds could operate in ways the Empire had not expected. Their creativity, empathy, and adaptability allowed them to navigate complexity where others relied on rigidity. The final phase of the confrontation came at the Council itself. The coalition had arranged a public challenge, intending to humiliate Eli and assert their dominance over alien delegates. The chamber was packed with observers, humans, aliens, diplomats, and advisors. The tension was palpable. Eli prepared carefully. He anticipated arguments, countered with logic, and designed a sequence of demonstrations that highlighted fairness, balance, and strategic foresight. When the coalition representatives attempted to undermine him, Eli responded with calm reasoning, appealing to both logic and tradition. His arguments revealed flaws in the coalition's strategy and exposed overconfidence in their assumptions about humans. Violia observed from her position, proud but measured. She allowed him to speak and act, only intervening minimally to clarify points of alien law or prevent protocol breaches. By the end, the coalition was forced to concede. Their credibility weakened, and even their supporters recognized Eli's competence. The council convened to assess the results. Eli's strategy had not only neutralized the coalition's challenges, but also strengthened interfaction alliances, stabilized trade routes, and prevented potential conflicts. The council's approval was unanimous. Humans, once dismissed as insignificant, had earned a measure of respect previously unimaginable. Violia stepped beside Eli. "You have demonstrated intellect, adaptability, and moral reasoning," she said. "You have shown that humans can influence events beyond expectation. This is not mastery, but partnership, and partnership is strength." It had been a catalyst for growth, learning, and collaboration. Together, they had succeeded because they respected each other, understood each other's strengths, and combined them effectively. In the aftermath, Eli noticed subtle changes in the Empire's perception of humans. Delegates and officials who had previously doubted his abilities now consulted him for insight. Trade routes were stabilized under his guidance, rebellions were managed peacefully, and previously skeptical factions began to acknowledge the value of human adaptability. Violia addressed him privately one evening as they reviewed reports. "Eli, the Empire has observed you closely. Your actions have demonstrated qualities few humans are recognized for: foresight, empathy, and strategic thinking. This will redefine how humans are perceived, not as weak but as capable partners in complex matters. You applied knowledge, creativity, and judgment. The strength was always yours. Humans are underestimated, but they may yet shape events in ways many believe impossible. You have proven that." He had learned the value of observation, the power of empathy, and the strength of strategic thinking. He had discovered that humans, even when small and underestimated, could thrive in environments that demanded intellect, adaptability, and moral clarity. The partnership with Violia was no longer one of inherited obligation. It was a relationship built on mutual respect, complementary abilities, and shared purpose. They were equals in strategy, allies in diplomacy, and collaborators in safeguarding stability across the Empire. As the stars stretched past the transport's observation deck, Eli reflected on the journey. Humans were small, fragile perhaps in body, but resilient in mind. They could analyze, adapt, and innovate in ways the Empire had not expected. He realized that the galaxy was not ruled solely by power or protocol, but by those who could think, anticipate, and act with wisdom and creativity. The coalition, defeated and discredited, retreated quietly. The Empire's factions realigned, influenced subtly by Eli's actions. Trade, diplomacy, and governance stabilized, but more importantly, humans had proven themselves capable of navigating complexity at the highest levels. Violia turned to him one last time. "Eli, you have transformed perception. Humans are no longer seen merely as subjects of curiosity. They are partners, capable of shaping outcomes with intellect, foresight, and moral reasoning. Remember this: your species' greatest strength is its adaptability and creativity. You have demonstrated it fully." The stars outside the observation deck seemed to twinkle with possibility. The Empire was vast, the challenges unending, but Eli felt ready. Humans had earned their place not by force, but by ingenuity, courage, and respect for others. And for the first time, Eli understood the true meaning of the inheritance. It was not about ownership, control, or dominance. It was about responsibility, learning, and partnership. Through respect, strategy, and human ingenuity, he had not only survived, he had thrived. The galaxy was vast, but humans were clever, resourceful, and resilient. Eli had proven that even the smallest beings, underestimated and overlooked, could shape the course of empires. He turned to Violia, her luminous eyes reflecting the stars. "So what happens now?" he asked. She smiled faintly, a rare expression that carried respect and acknowledgement. "Now," she said, "we continue. There will always be challenges, but humans have shown they are capable, and we will face them together as equals. The coalition was defeated, the empire stabilized, and humans had proven their worth. But more than that, he had learned something fundamental. Intelligence, empathy, and adaptability, qualities humans often overlooked in themselves, could shape destinies far larger than any single individual. As the transport glided silently among the stars, Eli felt the weight of possibility. The universe was vast, full of challenges and unknowns, but for the first time he believed humans could navigate it with ingenuity, resilience, and honor. And so, the boy who had inherited a powerful alien figure, who had once been ordinary in every way, now stood as a symbol of human potential. Not by force, not by dominance, but by intelligence, morality, and the courage to act thoughtfully in a world that had long underestimated him. Together, Eli and Virelia moved forward, ready to face the galaxy, an alliance of human ingenuity and alien power, bound by respect, strategy, and shared purpose. And for the first time, Eli understood the full measure of what humans could achieve. The stars stretched on, silent, endless, and full of possibility.